at 6:30. I'll call the meeting to order, and this is the Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities, meeting dated November 15th, 2021. And could I have a mover for the approval of the agenda, please? Deputy Mayor Deschamps, seconder. Mr. Packwood, thank you. All in favor of the agenda?
Aye.
Thank you. Now, this brings us to number 3. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof?
None by me.
Hearing none, thank you. And business arising from the previous Committee of the Whole minutes, which would be dated October 18th. You've had them in your package. You've had a chance to go through them. Any errors or omissions, concerns, questions?
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. No, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I'd just like to know what the status are for the quote on our sidewalk in Spencerville, water sidewalk maintenance.
Do you have a page number, sir?
Page 3 of 149. The quotes are out in the paper or not. It would be above B. There's consensus committee direct staff to issue a request of a quote.
And your question is to
I'd just like to know if the quote's out in the newspaper. And if it is.
Mr. CAO.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. As of right now, it's not, but we are looking into a couple other options, and you'll see something in your package for Thursday night's budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on. That brings us to delegations and presentations. There are none. Now brings us to number 6, which is the discussion items and the aggregate resources master plan follow-up. And it's on page 7 to 9 in your package. And who will be speaking to this memo we have?
I think I will, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead then, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, so council is aware that, or the committee is aware that, and so is the CDC committee, that there were a number of concerns raised regarding this aggregate resources master plan and the effect which it may or may not have on development. And we sent, I think, at least one motion and possibly one motion and possibly a letter to Sherry Mills, who is the planner, the county planner, who will be in charge of getting this aggregate resources master plan through county council. So as a result of the various comments that she had received from us, she prepared this memo and made it widely available to all members of county council. And I think the things to note here is that and I didn't make specific points that I wanted to outline, but the point is that all the provincial, and this is on page 7 of 149, and it's in the 3rd paragraph from the bottom. The provincial policy statement requires all of the resource to be mapped. But what is shown on the mapping is not a designation. The intent is not to preserve all of it, but only to preserve what is worth preserving. The mapping will be used as a screening tool to trigger if an aggregate assessment is needed when a non-aggregate uses are being proposed for the same piece of land. And then a little bit later on that same page, in the last paragraph, for permitted development on or near aggregates, all the below uses are exempt from an assessment being needed, and there's a whole list of exemptions there. So I think that this gives me a quite a bit higher level of comfort that I had originally, and I know that other members of county council were very interested in reading this because there were many comments made when it was received. So I hope everybody's aware of the plan. The plan is that the aggregate resources master plan will go to the Planning Advisory Committee on December the 14th. And that will be the statutory meeting. And I think there's also a meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee with council on that same date. So just make sure everybody's aware of the plan, and I think the briefing note speaks for itself, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Will December 14th be the final designate meeting on this?
Oh, I would say so.
Okay, and will there be?
We're the only ones that have put our concerns in writing, and
Okay.
we're the only ones that, it's because of our concerns that this note has been generated.
And I guess the other question I have, will that meeting be open to the public?
Oh, yes, all the meetings of the Planning Advisory Committee are open to the public.
Thank you. All right, I'll start with Mr. Bush, if you have any questions or concerns regarding this memo for Mayor Sale. Mr. Packwood.
No,
And Councillor Hunter.
no, I think it was well worth our effort to put more things in writing.
Sure was.
We would have got this if we hadn't, so.
Deputy Mayor. And Councillor Dillabaugh.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, fine. In that case, then I'm going to move on through the agenda.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. CEO.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. CIO, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to confirm that council is still looking to pass the resolution at council on the 22nd, or does this satisfy council's concern?
Okay.
Well, yeah, but we had asked for a resolution, I recall.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what the tone and the direction of the resolution was, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair was basically to limit the required assessment area to as small of a field as possible.
Can I suggest, Mr. Chairman, that we allow that motion to come forward and be debated at the council meeting, and let's determine where it goes from there, because notwithstanding this memo, I think it doesn't hurt to keep ourselves on record.
Correct. Okay, so that will be part of the package on the end of the
That
month.
will be
A week from today.
within the council package, yes.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Okay, moving on. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the action information items, and 7A is the fire department bunker gear work in process. And Chief Moore, would you like to highlight your the briefing note, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So here looking for approval to carry forward funds allocated in 2021 to fund our bunker gear purchase in 2022. So what happened was in August, we ordered 15 sets of bunker gear, and the delivery was supposed to be 8 sets in December with 7 sets in January, and that would allow us to split the purchase over 2 budgets and save a little bit of money with a year-end price increase. Unfortunately, like everything else, there's a large backlog of orders, and our order is not going to be ready until March 2022. According to the procurement policy, all expenditures shall be within the current approved budget or within approved estimates, otherwise prior approval of council shall be required. So the cost of our gear is $34,305. Typically, we have a budget of $25,000 for the total for the year. So I'm suggesting that the unused portion from 2021 be utilized to offset the purchase in 2022. With a recommendation that committee recommend that council direct the treasurer to place the unspent 2021 uniform budget amount into the amounts carried forward account to be used to fund part of the purchase of bunker gear in 2022.
Thank you, Chief Moore. Councillor Dillabaugh, I'll start at your end. Do you have any concerns or questions here?
I just have one there, dear Chair, to the chief, is when the United Counties did this overhaul of all the fire departments, I thought one of the recommendations the fire chiefs came back with that we're gonna buy bulk. With all the other fire departments in United Counties. So I'm just asking, why did we order the bunker gear and not go through the United Counties?
Chief Moore?
Certainly. I believe we discussed it briefly in the update for the county study. But basically, one of the challenges is every department right now is set up separately because we've been doing our own thing for so long. So some people have budget, bunker gear budgeted in capital. Some people, they take their recruitments at different times. So we're kind of all over the map as to when we're making our purchases and how we're doing it. We did go out for pricing from 4 suppliers for the county, and that's where our pricing did come from. We couldn't put together a purchase this year.
Thank you. Is that okay, Mr. Councilor Dillabaugh?
I'd like to see it, I would like to see it go further in the future, for sure, but.
I'm sure that's going to be a work in progress to accommodate that. Mr. Mayor?
But what the chief has already said is that it's been bulk purchased. We just issue our own purchase orders. It's been bulk quoted, has it not?
That is correct.
Yeah, so the quotation is a bulk quotation generated as a result of that exercise. And then each department places their own orders when and as required. As I understand what you just said.
Through the chair, that's correct. Obviously, if we could get organized as a county and make one purchase or a long-term contract, we would do much better with pricing, but that's going to take some time.
Thank you.
Still a bulk quote.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Deputy Mayor? Councilor Hunter?
I'm at the same, I have no problem carrying through with this order here, but I'm not Councilor Dillabaugh. I think we need to do some more effort. And I know we're all over the map, but I think we got to get off all over the map and get together with these departments. And as you said, because the orders come in like this, but it's still going to be a lot better if you're ordering 100 bunker gear than you're ordering 15. So.
Mr. Packwood?
Okay.
And Mr. Bush?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
So what is the amount that we're being asked to carry forward? Is it the 25,000 then? Is that the unused amount? What is the amount that's being carried to carry forward?
I'd have to get a more updated one. The most recent one I had, there was about 16,000 left in that budget line item to carry forward.
Oh, okay. So that's what's left in that line item.
Correct. Some
Okay.
of the 25,000 has been spent.
Okay, so we're talking about 15,000. Pleased to move the recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I do for the recommendation. I do have a mover. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councilor Dillabaugh, I'll take you right now. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Okay, this brings us now to 7B, which again is the fire department, and it's the fire department retirement policy. Excuse me, Chief Moore, would you highlight the briefing note, please?
Yes, thank you. So I'm bringing forward tonight a proposed retirement policy for the fire department. At this time, we do not have a retirement policy in place, so a firefighter can serve perpetuity regardless of their age. Lots of studies have shown evidence indicates that health and safety is increasingly impacted by age. There is a graph below. I'm sorry, it's a little hard to read, but it's basically a trend analysis of workers' compensation boards across Canada for firefighters. And the bar on the far right would be 65 and over. So there's kind of a steady increase. And then once you get to 65, there is a significant increase in claims. On top of page 2 is just a graph showing our firefighter ages. We are a very young fire department at the moment. In 2011, Bill 181 amended the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, and they now have mandatory retirement for regularly assigned firefighters assigned to fire suppression duties, so 60 years old for firefighters. Volunteer firefighters are exposed to the same conditions as their full-time counterparts, although the number of exposures could potentially be less than those in full-time forces. We could expect significantly longer exposures due to our limited resources in smaller organizations. Emergency responses require significant physical, emotional, and cognitive demands that create acute stress. Even a firefighter who is not participating in physical activity is exposed to significant stress related to the cognitive and emotional demands of that incident. Obviously, this is a sensitive issue. Recent recruitment efforts have been successful. However, we do have some daytime staffing challenges. I think we'll have to balance retirement with recruitment. While being a volunteer firefighter cannot reasonably continue forever, with the loss of any experienced member through retirement comes a loss of valuable experience to the department. Obviously, lastly, at the bottom of the page, the feelings of our firefighters needs to be considered. Many have given decades of service to the community and in many cases wish to continue. This is a major life change for people who have spent the majority of their time in the fire service. We have consulted with the fire department officers, the Joint Health and Safety Committee, and members of the Firefighters Association. Policy implications, Employment Standard Act, there is nothing regarding volunteer firefighter retirement. Bill 181, which was mentioned on the first page, is mandatory retirement at 60 for firefighters regularly assigned to fire suppression. Human Rights Commission, they permit the establishment of mandatory retirement at a specific age where reasonable and a bona fide occupational requirement based on the nature of the employment. Many volunteer fire services have determined that a retirement age of 65 is appropriate. And finally, the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act. In 2007, Bill 221 introduced presumptive legislation for many types of cancer. In 2009, this was opened up to volunteer firefighters and fire inspectors. In addition, if a firefighter sustains injury to the heart within 24 hours of attending an emergency or training exercise, that injury is presumed to occur due to the nature of the worker's employment as a firefighter. So finally, recommendation, the committee recommend that council direct staff to prepare a bylaw to adopt the attached volunteer firefighter recruitment policy. The policy itself is Schedule A. Pretty much 2 lines at the bottom. Fire department personnel are required to retire on their seniority date after turning the age of 65 with a phase-in period of approximately 13 months. So that all firefighters over the age of 65 on December 31st, 2021 shall retire on or before December 31st, 2022.
Thank you, Chief. The recommendation has been read. I'll start with Councillor Dillabaugh again. Concerns, questions? Or Chief Moore?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a problem with this. I'm the chair to the fire chief. How many firefighters are over 65 years on our department right now?
Through the chair, we currently have 4.
And how many are going in, will be turning 65 on the 50 to 64 next year?
I don't believe we have any additional turning 65.
Out of the 4, how many of them would like to stay and not retire?
Through the chair, I think there were 2 that already had plans to retire, and I think there were 2 that were not planning to retire.
That's all for now. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
So first of all, let me indicate that I'm very aware of the fact that this is a sensitive issue with old, time long serving fire department members who have spent, some of them, more than 25 years with the department. And so I know it's a sensitive issue, and I have a lot of empathy with their concerns. I'll get that out right at the beginning. But through the chair to the chief, I have a question, because on page 1 of 3, your bar graph shows that the exposure to injury and fatality and injury really rises exponentially after age 64. We can see that in the bar chart. And although we only have 4 that are greater than 65, the recommendation that we're faced with here is that they don't retire until age 65, after turning 65. In other words, we're setting the bar at the far end of the scale rather than at the 60 age where the exposure is less and the risk is less. And I'm just wondering if there was any thought and any discussion at the officers level or with the association of the 60 number as opposed to the 65 number. And could we have some feedback through the chair to the chief? Could we have some feedback on that concept first, and then I'd like to follow up, Mr. Chair.
Chief Moore?
Certainly. Most of the discussion that we had was they would have liked to seen the number higher. There was no discussion for a lower number.
So the follow-up question is, is this, in your assessment, is this going to cause a morale problem within the department? Through the chair, if I may.
Through the chair, I did not receive any negative feedback. There were a couple of members that were disappointed. Obviously, I guess disappointed is the word, but there was no pushback.
Follow up. I'm just, through the chair, I'm just looking for a little bit of advice here, if I may. The recommendation is that council directs staff to prepare a bylaw to adopt the policy. Our rules of procedure requires that a bylaw receive unanimous approval on first and second reading if it's going to proceed to third reading at the same meeting. So if this recommendation is carried tonight the way it sits, it would come to council as a bylaw next Monday night. My question through the chair is, could we, as a sign of respect and concern for the reluctant members, could we give that bylaw first and second reading at the end of November and hold it until final reading for the December meeting? That would only be, I think, 2 or 3 weeks in December. And that would be just as a sign of respect for the concerns and a show of empathy for the people that are actually being forced to adhere to the policy. I'm just interested to know if that would have any resonance within the department at all. We would depend on the chief and the officers to communicate to the members that it's out of sign of respect that we didn't want to do it in a rush. And I know it hasn't been a rush because you've had lots of consultation. I've heard that.
Through the chair, I have no concerns with that approach. If that's a desire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's my questions.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
No, nothing at all.
And Councillor Hunter?
I think it's a good policy brought forward, long overdue, I believe. The only thing that I still don't see in any of our bylaws or anything here is mandatory physical assessment every year. Most fire departments have to pass a medical every year. I know that we haven't had it, and maybe it is a contentious issue with some of the ones because they're volunteering, but that medical done every year might reveal something for some of a firefighter that might save his life, but he shows up at a fire and under stress and doesn't really know he has a condition, so. Because we're all building, we don't go for medicals. Maybe when we get older, the doctor forces us to, but younger guys, and unfortunately, our department in Edgeworth did lose a firefighter with a heart condition a number of years ago, that didn't even know he had a heart condition, but died at a fire in Kempville, so. I pushed for this for a long time, and I'd still like to see it someplace along the way, but these firefighters have to have a medical to remain on active duty. I think it's for their own good, and they'd be upset with it, but I think it's for their own good and their family's good. That's my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Packwood?
Through the chair to the chief. Firefighters that are dedicated between 60 and 65, would it make sense to offer them something like a home fire safety inspector? Help people set up fire safety plans for their homes, providing like they're mobile enough, that they're agile enough that. Because to me, I think that's something that we really need, is something to educate people. And it might be a good job for them.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Bush?
Well, I would, I agree with Councilor Hunter with the physical testing. In the military, that was a common thing. Every couple of years, you go in for your physical exam, do a little bit of a physical fitness test, and that was you're okay to continue duty. So I would lean on that more than just a number. I realize we have stats with the number that come with it, but I think there's some 65-year-olds that could probably outrun me. So
Thank you. So Chief Moore, I have a question, if you don't mind. When you're referring to you discussed this with the fire department officers, that was within our volunteer fire department.
that is correct.
Okay. Good. That's. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. So as far as the recommendation goes, would to add in the physical examination, would you be more comfortable with bringing that forward at another time in the new year, perhaps?
Through the chair, perhaps I could, or sorry, to you, Mr. Chair, perhaps I could provide an information item in the first quarter of next year with some information on that regard.
And Councillor Hunter, Mr. Packwood, would that be suitable for you too?
Yep.
Okay, fine. So we'll leave the recommendation then as it stands. Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
So thank you. Just a couple of follow-ups, if I may. So we got two items on two issues on the table here, but I'm glad to hear that the issue of medical examinations will come forward in the next quarter. I think that's more appropriate to separate it here. So through the chair to the chief, was there any discussion given to the implementation of the policy in a partial manner? Let me explain what I mean. On the policy statement on page 15 of 149, the policy states that Edwardsburg Cardinal Fire Department personnel are required to retire on their seniority date after turning 65 years of age. And that's pretty clear. Was there any thought given or any discussion given to trying to split the hair so that it would say to retire from active firefighting duties on their seniority date after turning age 65?
That was too cheap, Moore.
Through the chair.
So certainly through the chair to Mayor Sale. The problem with that, we get into what duties or suppression firefighters, and it doesn't matter whether you're at a fire and you have an incident or you're in the parking lot and you slip on the ice at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, fair comment, fair comment. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Fair comment, Chief.
Okay, so the recommendation will read as follows: that committee recommend that council direct staff to prepare a bylaw to adopt the attached volunteer firefighter retirement policy. And we have the understanding that it will reach first reading on the December or the November meeting, and it will go no further than that. It will be, the second reading will be brought forward at the December regular meeting.
Third reading.
Third reading on the December meeting. That's fully understood. So could I have a mover for the recommendation, please? Councillor Hunter, and seconder, Mr. Packwood, thank you. All in favor? And that's carried, thank you. Okay, just bear with me here a moment. Right, so that brings us now to 7C, and that is the Cardinal and Industrial Park Drinking Water System License and Permit Renewals. And I feel that I have Mr. Shaw down to speak to the briefing note. Is that correct, Mr. Shaw?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
And there is a recommendation on this as well.
The topic of this report is the 2021 Cardinal Industrial Park Drinking Water System License and Permit Renewals. A purpose to review and receive Cardinal Industrial Municipal Drinking Water Permit and Licenses. Background: pursuant to Safe Drinking Water Act of 2002, all regulated drinking water systems must hold a valid license and permits. Licenses and permits outline general and site-specific requirements that must be achieved for compliance. Site-specific requirements include an updated drinking water quality management plan, current system description of all components of the drinking water system, maximum flow rates, calibration of inline analyzers, filter treatment efficiencies, pathogen removal credits, and UV system operational requirements. The drinking water permit also outlines the modifications that can be made to a drinking water process or distribution system without regulatory approval. The new requirements that came out with the licenses and permits with this application: the implementation of a harmful algae bloom sampling and monitoring procedure, which is completed, and following the most current version of the water main disinfection procedure, and calibration requirements for inline analyzers and flow meters. Policy implications: the Cardinal Industrial Park Municipal Drinking Water License permits are now valid until October 21st, 2026, so for 5 years. Financial considerations: new requirements will not impact the 2021 or 2022 water system budgets. Recommendation is that committee recommends that council review and receive the new municipal drinking water licenses and permits for Cardinal and Industrial Park water systems.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. And as you can see, committee, that there is a number of schedules and briefing notes and whatnot. It was quite the read. And I'll start with Mr. Bush. Any questions or concerns on the recommendation?
No, I don't think so.
Mr. Packwood?
No comments.
Councillor Hunter?
No, looks like a very good report. Looks like everything's doing wonderful.
Deputy Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
So I read there's 4 permits here. There's 2 license permits. There's 2 licenses and 2 permits. I'm having, and I read them all, but I'm trying to determine in my mind, what's the difference between a license and a permit?
Through the chair, if you look on the first page of any of them, either one of them, there's basically the schedules are different in the descriptions of the schedules. The drinking water license, I believe, is not quite as comprehensive as the permit.
Okay, so the license the facility, and the permit tells what you can do and can't do. Is that a good way to conceptualize it?
Through the chair, if I may, I would look at the municipal drinking water license as the high level overview of that requirement that encompasses your drinking water works permit, your permit to take water, financial plan, and the operator accreditation, where the drinking water works permit sort of sets out those details with respect to the operational requirements within that facility, within that process.
Okay, that was kind of the feeling that I was getting, but I just wanted to hear it explained. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and through the chair, congratulations to the staff for getting these 4 permits renewed for another 5-year period.
And Councillor Wilbon?
Yes, thank you, to the chair. On page 31 of 149, one of the new requirements is calibrations for our analyzers. Our analyzers, they have to be, do a chair to Mr. Shaw. The analyzers have to be calibrated every 12 months. Do we send them out, or do they come and calibrate them? And if we do send them out, do we have a backup?
The chair, typically the inline analyzers are checked with calibrated lab instruments. So we have instrumentation come in from the company and check and approve instruments in the lab. So the checks are done against the lab, and there's calibrations done on the inline instruments by staff.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a recommendation. Could I have a mover for the recommendation, please? Mr. Packwood, and could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Dillabaugh, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. All right, thank you all. That brings us down to 7D, which is the budget item, and it's the 2022 draft spending bill wastewater budget. And Madam Treasurer, would you highlight the briefing note, please? And there is a recommendation with this.
Certainly, through the chair. What we're anticipating is no increase to the actual rate itself to the users, mainly because we've had additional units added to the system so that it is generating a little bit more revenue. There is the increase index for salaries, and consequently a little bit with respect to benefits associated to those increases. But we've taken grass cutting where we had it contracted, and we've moved it into in-house so that we can save a little bit of money there. And there's been some reductions in a few areas in hydro and such, where I've done an analysis of our 5-year average, and I've determined we can reduce in those areas. So as a result, take money out of the system to support the capital, which is really good, because in 21 we were actually anticipating to take about $8,500 out to do the capital. The capital work was not completed in 2021, so we are going to be carrying forward that same capital project to be completed in 22. If you need more information specific to that, Eric, our chief operator, can actually speak to that. Yeah, so we're going to actually put about $7,600 or $7,900 into the reserve if we have.
That's what's anticipated.
That's anticipated in the budget.
Okay, thank you, Madam Treasurer. I'll start with Mr. Bush. Do you have any questions or concerns with the briefing note?
No, it seems it's always good when that goes down, right? So yeah, good job.
Mr. Packwood. No concerns. Very good. Councillor Hunter?
No concerns, looks good.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
No concerns. Thought it looks excellent. Budget looks great. Just more of an inquisical thing. for all three of the budgets that are coming forward. I noticed that there is about a 10% reduction for insurance costs. And I was surprised to see, well, you're increasing them for the next year's budget, but this year's actual compared to what we budgeted last year is about a 10% decrease. Is that just a statistical anomaly or?
No, the budget when it's generated is always overestimated, and then when we actually did our renewal, it was less than what the budget was, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
So, yes, through the chair, I have a number of questions. So I'm just talking about the reserve just for a minute. So in 2021, we had budgeted to take 8465 out of reserves and use that 8465 for a capital expenditure, as I understand it. And that did not happen. So the 8465 did not come out of the reserves, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, so now we're going to 2021. Is that capital project anticipated to take place in 2021? Through the chair, if I may?
Go ahead.
I can speak on the relining of our splitter box, Mr. Chair. It is not going to happen in 2021. The contractor advised us about a month or two ago that they are a shortage of the polymer involved in the process. So we're hoping to complete that in 2022.
Wait a minute now. So the $8,400 capital project that didn't take place in 2021 is going to take place in 2022? Is that what I understand?
Well, we will be contacting the contractor again in the winter, and we are going to be hoping to have that done in the spring or summer after high flows.
Okay, so the reason I am asking, Mr. Chairman, is because the budget doesn't show a transfer out of the reserves in 2022 to do that capital project. Am I missing something here someplace? It shows transferring 7,900 into reserves, but it doesn't show the capital project occurring in 2022.
Yes, that's on the back page.
So on my back page, it says Spencerville wastewater capital, 23,000. Is that the project?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so then how is that project being financed? It's being financed basically from current year revenues then, is it?
Correct. And some reductions in expenditures.
And some reductions in expenditures, okay. So basically from current year revenues, it's being financed out of the 153 revenues, is that correct?
Correct.
And so it's not only that 23,000 being financed, that 23,000 capital being financed from 2022 revenues. In addition to that, there's 7,900 to go into reserves. Is that right?
Correct.
Is there that much difference in revenue between 2021 revenues and 2022 revenues? Doesn't look like it.
Well, our 2021 is not finished because we still have the last quarter to bill.
Yes, but we budgeted, without that capital item, we budgeted to receive 149,045. And we're budgeting 2022 to receive 153. So there's a difference there of about $4,000 or $5,000. But yet the expenditure in 2022 is a $23,000 capital plus a $7,900 transfer to reserve. If I've got my numbers correct, if I'm interpreting this correctly.
It's as a result of reductions in expenditures. We've got about almost $4,000 in reduction of expenditures.
Yes, I see that.
And that's where we're between the revenue of 4,700 plus the reduction in expenditures. We've got the equivalent of what we would have taken in.
Okay, so having had that discussion about the capital item, Mr. Chairman, then the other point that I wanted to make is, we're not making any increase to the rate. And I'm just wondering if that's a wise thing to do right now. I see we have the reserve fund balance as of October 31st is 335,739. But you know, these reserves are never, when it comes right down to a serious issue, never adequate. So I'm just wondering if this isn't the time we should contemplate a 1 or 2% increase in the rate. I'm gonna ask the same question when we get to the other two budgets, but I'm just put that out as a thought at this point.
I thought of a forewarning.
No, no, it's not that. I mean, we're gonna approve these budgets tonight and basically what we're seeing in front of us is no increase in the base rate on any of these budgets. And we all know the difficulties that occur when you're eventually forced to go with a 2 or 3 or 5% increase. And sometimes it's better to take 1% or 1.5% or 2% each year rather than have the big push all at once when it comes upon you. Especially when we're going to see that with the Cardinal sewer and water, maybe not so much with Spencerville, but we are going to see that with Cardinal sewer and water.
Anything else?
No, I'll pass for now.
Okay, Councillor Dillabaugh?
Yes, thank you, to the chair. I just have a question. I didn't hear Eric's fully answer on our split box, why it wasn't being done, the $23,000 in 2021. Can you run that by me again, please?
Yep, the contractor advised us actually two issues. One was that there was a polymer shortage that they used to realign the splitter box with, and also that due to COVID that they are quite behind in projects. So those were the two reasons that were provided to me.
But it's obviously it's safe enough to
It
get
is
by
safe
until
enough, it's just
2022.
we could not get the project done.
That's all I want. Thank you.
Okay.
Well
Thank you. Okay, so the recommendation is that committee recommends that council direct staff to draft.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So before we deal with the recommendation, can we hear other comments with regard to a 1 or 2% increase?
We can consider that certainly. Your, do you have a preference? One?
No, I just want general comment on the,
On an increase.
yeah.
We'll start with Councillor Dillabaugh on that one.
I can go along with 1%, maybe 1.5. I do agree with the mayor. We should always tuck a little bit of money in their reserves, because it's never enough, especially for the wastewater.
Well, we found that out in Cardinal.
Exactly. So I would go along with 1.5.
And Deputy Mayor
Yeah, I can go to 1.
and Councillor Hunter.
I can see adding a little bit in, but we have got quite a increase with hookup costs and stuff on here added to it. We're a little bit different than the Cardinal wastewater. The Cardinal wastewater, you have a very the treatment plant for Spencerville doesn't have a treatment plant, it's just a lagoon, so I don't know, $335,000 surplus, and we're still adding $8,000 a year to it this year. And I wouldn't want to see any more than a 1% maximum. I think the staff did a pretty good job of figuring this out. But we need reserves, but we gotta see how much reserve we need to, so.
Mr. Packwood
Go along with the 1%.
and Mr. Bush.
I don't have the experience that everyone else has being on council. So I haven't really seen many of the emergencies come up. But I was pretty happy to see this balanced the way that it was.
Okay, so you're sort of on the fence as far as an
Yeah,
increase
yeah,
goes.
yeah.
Thank you. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, actually, well, 5, 6, that would accept an increase, Mr. Mayor. Is there something you'd like to, and it sounds to me like 1% is the preferred number. Would you like to amend the recommendation
I think
to
so.
include that?
I think so, but I'm just trying to think what the wording might be. Recommends the council direct staff to draft the bylaw to adopt the 2022 budget estimates with a 1% increase for the Spencerville wastewater system. So we're just going after the words, after the word estimates with a 1% increase.
Does staff have that terminology all right?
I guess we'd have to say with a 1% increase to the base rate.
Okay. Okay, so we have added after the word estimates to a 1% increase to the base rate. Everybody is clear on that? That is now the new recommendation as amended. Did I get a seconder, a mover and a seconder?
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
I have Mr. Packwood seconding and I have Mr. Mayor moving. I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. Okay, this brings us to item 7E, which is the 2022 draft Cardinal wastewater budget. And Madam Treasurer, would you highlight this for us, please?
Certainly, through the chair. This budget is presented with basically no increase to the base rate. I did a calculation. If we had done a base rate increase, we would only have received about $9,000 in additional revenue. But if we do a $1 increase in the capital levy, we do actually come out with a little bit more revenue. So the recommendation is to do the capital levy increase as opposed to a base increase. I can't really say specifically the impact. The only other thing is when we look at a 1% increase, when we apply that to the various cap rates or various base rates that we have, 1% on $24, $28 is small compared to our commercial and customers who, if we got a 1% on them, it's going to impact them pretty heavily. If we do $1 per levy per unit, it's across the board, everybody gets the same increase, and it's not onerous on our businesses who are just coming out of the pandemic. So that's where staff's idea was to still generate actually more revenue than the base rate increase, and actually have a little bit more even fair for all, and make sure that our commercial partners were not affected to a great extent.
Thank you. I will start with Councillor Gilboa at that end of the committee table. Any questions or concerns regarding this?
No, I'm happy with the recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Well, before we get to the recommendation, Mr. Chair, I'd like to look at the actual budget here on page 89 for a minute. So I see there's a reduction, or it's actually an increase. Contract fee, it says, and it was budgeted as 47,000 in 2021 and up 6,000 to 53,000 in 2022. I'm just wondering what contract fee is it that goes up the $6,000? There's a number of reductions in other areas, but just want to look at that increase for the first thing.
Through the chair, I'm going to refer to the Director of Operations, the Chief Water Operator, to explain the costs associated with that particular line item.
Yes, thank you.
Through the chair, Mike.
Yes.
Well, part of that increase is due to the SCADA upgrades from Schneider Electric. The other one is that or there's a couple other ones, and one is for the, they were missed in the last budget, were for the grit removal, which changed the process. That's from Waste Connections now. And the last one is for the inspection of the boilers that have been, we've taken on a contract for an inspection of the boilers. Black McDonald.
Before, who did it before?
It was done by staff.
And why can't staff do it now?
We have a reduction in our IT staff or our mechanical group. And just for liability reasons, it's best to have a outside contractor do it.
I see.
So then through the chair, so there's 3 different contracts in this line item?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so each one is increasing a little bit with a total increase of 6,000.
Correct.
Oh, okay, all right, so that clears
Through
that up.
through the chair, there's more than 3 contracts within there. There's probably 8,
Oh, yeah. All the
8, 9.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
At least, yes.
okay, well, thank you very much for that clarification, appreciate that.
Okay, anything else?
Just, I didn't have anything else flagged. Oh, yes, I did, as a matter of fact. So now the insurance, we had budgeted 135, and actually looks like our actual cost was 21, and now we're anticipating 23. And then it shows that as a, oh yes, as a 5% increase on the 2021 actual. Okay, fair enough, I understand that now. I think that was explained earlier, reference to the deputy mayor's question. Just pass for a minute, Mr. Chair, I'd like to come back here.
All right, I'll go to the deputy mayor then.
Don't have any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter.
Just, I don't know, with the inflation rate and everything that we got going and not much, it still looks like we're transferring out of reserves to cover the work that's planned and done. I don't know that having in this budget here, having no base increase, how it's going to work out at the end. The reserve, like we just did a 1% increase to a special one that has over $300,000 in reserve. This one's just going to have a little over $200,000 left in reserves, and we're not recommending an increase. So,
Well, remember now, last year, we put in a $5 levy increase, which hit the tax, the users somewhat hard, and we're increasing that by $1 again.
still taking out of reserves to cover the cost. So,
Mr. Packwood and Mr. Bush.
No, I'm okay with this one.
Okay, I'll come back to Mr. Mayor. Do you have anything further?
Yes, the last one was on page 90 of 149. It says, line item 5727, maintenance Cardinal WW collection. Is that the collection system that we're talking about there? And why would the cost go from 40? Well, it was budgeted at 40. We actually spent 20, and now we're budgeting 30. Is that, and that says based on a 5-year average. So the 30 is deemed to be adequate for 2022 through the chair, if I could, to Eric.
Go ahead.
Yes, for 2022, we've assessed that 30,000 would be sufficient.
So now then, Mr. Chair, I'd like to come back to the question of the increase. Because if you recall last year, it was $5 levy, but it was 2 on the, I think it was 2 on the water and 3 on the, $2 a month on the water and $3 a month on the sewer.
That's correct.
And the staff is proposing a $1 per month increase on the capital levy on this is the wastewater budget we're talking about, which is $12 a year. But if I recall correctly, didn't we also have, in addition to that, introducing that levy concept, did we not also increase the residential base rate by 5% last year? And I mean, I get that from the background note right at the very first sentence of the background rationale on page 87. The 2020 budget increased the residential base rate by 5%. And the 2021, there was no increase in the base rate, but we did introduce the levy. So what I'm wondering is, I mean, I agree with the $1 increase in the levy, but I think there should also be a 1% or maybe a little bit more in the base rate as well. Again, I'm picking up on Councillor Hunter's comment here that, and I wish we had in front of us the policy. We have a reserve policy that tells us what the optimum amount we should be getting into each of these reserve accounts should be, and I just didn't have time to look it up. Maybe the treasurer could help us with that. What is the targeted optimum amount for this reserve?
Madam Treasurer?
Right off the top of my head, I do not know that policy, unfortunately, so I would have had to know that question was going to come to me tonight. But I still reiterate the fact that if we do a 1% on a base rate, you are going to impact your commercial in the village fairly significantly. On a cycle 100, which are the main commercial, they would increase at $29.16 on their base rate per annum. And then if you did $1, then that's another $12 on top of that, $30. That's a fairly impactful thing. The 1% will give you $9,000, whereas the $1 levy actually gains a little bit more revenue and doesn't impact our commercial partners.
And keeping in mind, Mr. Mayor, our commercial partners have had a very tough year in many cases with the COVID situation. And I know that doesn't stop the decay of the pipes and the infrastructure and whatnot, but they have had a considerable difficulty this year.
Just that it's always easier to do 1% than it is to do 5%.
True.
I rest my case.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Now I just have to find my recommendation here. I do believe it is on page 88. The committee recommend that council direct staff to draft a bylaw to adopt the 2022 budget estimates and increase the capital levy to $4 per month unit for the Cardinal wastewater system effective January 1st, 2022. Could I have a mover for the recommendation, please? Councillor Dillabaugh, thank you, and a seconder. Mr. Packwood, thank you. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Opposed, if any? Hearing none. Okay, thank you. Okay, just bear with me a moment while I collect my second.
So, Mr. Chairman, just before we go
Yes.
on,
Certainly.
one thing that we did kind of skip over with that budget was the base case for the two capital projects that are being proposed for that wastewater system. And one is the cast in place repairs on the Helen Street sewer, which we have some photographs from the inside of the pipe.
That is correct.
And the other one was, I think if I recall correctly, was the replace the GDS dewatering screw. And I just wanted to say that I appreciated receiving these briefing notes and these business cases. Both of these repairs are to long-standing and quite aged infrastructure. And I certainly support both projects, and I think they're included now in the budget that we just approved.
They are.
And it's too late to get my 1%, but there's all kinds of these kinds of things popping up in addition to what's going to happen on County Road 2, what could happen on County Road 2. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that. Okay, we're moving on now, and we're at 7F, which is the 2022 draft Cardinal water budget. And there is a recommendation with this as well. And you'll find that on page 109. The committee recommends that council direct staff to draft a bylaw to adopt the 2022 budget estimates for the Cardinal water system effective January 1st, 2020. You've had a chance to read the briefing notes. I will start with Mr. Bush. Any questions or concerns regarding the briefing notes?
No, at this time.
Mr. Packwood?
At this point, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Hunter?
Well, I read this right, we're not including any increase on anything on this.
I do not believe there is.
Mr. Chair, if I may, maybe we could just have the treasurer highlight this budget maybe before we continue the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. CIO, and I apologize to the committee for forgetting that step in the process. Madam Chairman, if you would highlight this.
Certainly. So yes, there definitely is no change to the base rate with the consumption data that we are experiencing in the water system. We have more revenue, or even anticipate more revenue than we had budgeted in 2021. And based on the consumption data to date, we can see an increase in that, a fairly significant increase in our revenues for 22. Again, we've done a review of our expenditures for a 5-year base average and seeing there's several areas where we can reduce our expenditures, not as much as in Spencerville wastewater, because the Spencerville wastewater is a lagoon system, is an easier system to run. But we did see some reductions in some areas in this water system. Our capital is slightly less, just by $2,000 compared to our 21 budget. And some of the projects are actually work in progress projects that are going to slide over from 21 because they were not completed in 21 to be completed in 22. We looked to only pull out last year. We had anticipated we might have to transfer 12,950. I think our year-end number will be, we're going to be transferring definitely all of our capital levy, but plus some for sure. So to do the capital that's requested, we still have to pull out $5,300 or so. But like I say, these are all estimates, and if we can, see some smaller expenditures and the consumption still building up, we can probably not even use $5,300 statement.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. I'll continue along with Councillor Hunter after hearing the briefing note highlights.
I can see that a lot of averaging, 5-year averages and stuff taken into account here, but looks like our budget's only estimating we're going to spend roughly $2,000 more than we did last year in our budget. I know we're basing on averages, but in the last number of years, averages, the cost of living has only been 1 or 2%, and we're already estimating that it's going to be 5 or 6% next year. So I think our 5-year averages might get knocked out of line And I think it's a good estimate, as long as things run the way they're supposed to, but if we get our grant system, we're going to keep that reserve down to just a shade over $200,000. If we have any major along the way, we're in trouble. So I'm fine with it if that's what council wants to do, but I just have a feeling we're setting people up in Cardinal for a big jump someplace along the way.
Deputy Mayor,
Happy with the way it's written?
thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Well, I have a lot of concerns again, here. I'm especially, directed to page 109, top of the page. A grant application has been submitted to ICIP Green Stream for the County Road 2 Water Rehab Project. If the township is successful, a source of funding will need to be determined for the township's portion of the project. Based on the application, the township's portion, which is 26.67% of the total project, is estimated at 562, Councillor Hunter's point. And, you know, that's going to deplete that reserve to less than 200,000. And we know that the ICIP application was only for phase 1 of 3 phases on County Road 2. Where on earth will the money come from for phase 2 and phase 3? And I can't believe that we would pass this budget without a 1 or a 2% increase here and setting ourselves up to look forward. I mean, I hate debt financing, and debt financing for a project like this goes right on the backs of these users. You're looking at a lot of money if we get the money for phase 1 and then you have to go to phase 2 and phase 3 strictly on the backs of the users. Much easier to put in a 1 or 2 or 3% increase right now than have it all accumulate 2 years down the road. I don't believe in kicking the can down the road. I believe in preparing for it ahead of time. So I'm prepared to deal with the recommendation with a 1 or 2% increase, even 3%.
Councillor,
Excuse me,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman.
Go ahead.
If the township is successful, a source of funding will need to be determined for the township's portion. There's the warning right there.
What is the page you're reading that from?
Page 109 of 149. And of course, when it says that it's only 562,000, but it's 562 away from 778. Do the math. There's not much left. And you got phase 2 and phase 3 still to come.
When does phase 2 and phase 3?
Well,
kick
we
in?
don't know.
We don't know that, right? And will there be grants available to apply for phase 2 and phase 3?
Through the chair of the CIO, and that I'm aware of.
So through the chair, right now, phase 1 would probably take us into 2024, I believe, is our estimate. So unfortunately, I would not be able to predict what would be available in 2025, 2026 at this stage.
So, Mr. Chair, picking up on that comment, now is the time to get ready for what's going to happen or what might happen. I mean, if phase 1 ends up being a 2024 project, this is a good time to prepare for it. Got 2022 and 2023 and possibly a new rate in 2024 to prepare for it. And that sets you up for phase 2 and phase 3. If I recall, and I may have it wrong, but if I recall, this first phase is from the west side of Cardinal down across County Road 22, underneath County Road 22. And if I'm correct, we're underneath the railroad tracks right as far as St. Lawrence Street. Does it go to St. Lawrence Street? I see Mr. Shaw shaking his head.
I thought it was to Shaw Street. But I could be wrong.
Chair, just St. Lawrence.
Okay, so then would there be just in this situation then, through the chair,
Go ahead.
would there be just then one more project, which would be St. Lawrence Street to Sawmill Creek? Or would that be divided into two?
That would be determined in the future. I mean, we have several years, but I think with the complexity of that initial section, you could probably do it in one shot. To the
Okay, so we'd have at least one more project, Mr. Chair.
That is correct. However, the phase one does cover the highest breakdown as we know it up to date, I do believe.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay,
Highest breakdown area.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes, it does. Okay. Okay, all right, let me finish with Councilman Dillabaugh.
Well, I just have one question, due the chair to the treasurer. What would a 2% increase generate for income on this budget of 2022? Could you give me a rough idea, please?
I didn't actually do the percentage on the water because we were looking relatively good in terms of additional revenue. But if you're leaning towards an increase, my recommendation would be that you would increase the capital levy as opposed to the percentage for the same reasons that I said with the wastewater, is that if you do a percentage on a base rate for a higher base rate, like the Cat ones or Cycle 100, which are our commercial partners, 1%, 2%, or 3% on their rate would be a significantly higher amount. And so all the weight would shift to that sector of the population, as opposed to putting $1 or whatever on the levy for everyone instead, making sure that we have more water users than we have wastewater users. So we would probably get, if we did a $1 levy, probably more like 12 or 13,000 in revenue on a capital levy increase. I would have to do the math on the percentages, but I do caution you on the percentages on a base rate because of the implications to the commercial partners.
If we were to increase the levy by say $1, could you give us an idea of what that would add to the coffers?
11,040.
1140. 11, yeah. Thank you.
11,000 on 562.
Correct. Correct.
Won't get you very far.
But that would be, we would get more money by going to the levy than we would to the base.
Yes, because if you do a percentage on your base,
Right.
your bigger, the larger number of users are residential.
Correct.
And so a percentage on theirs, when I did a 1 or 2% on their wastewater, it was like $3.50 and per annum, and they're the bulk of the users. But your commercial partners would be closer to $30 or $33 per annum. And you wouldn't get probably as much using a percentage based approach.
Okay, thank you. All right, then I'm going to, oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Hunter, go ahead.
Referring to the base rate, what's the base rate in Cardinal now for residential person users?
Or wastewater or water. Water is $25.44. And wastewater is $28.29.
What's the commercial one?
So our ICI 1 inch is $7.40 or $70.40 for water and $78.25 for wastewater. And then our 2 inch are $218.76 for water and $243.16 for wastewater.
What I don't
Well,
know,
just a moment, I'd just like to see if Councilor Hunter has finished with his question.
So that's per month?
That is the rate per month. Yeah.
Now, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
so,
Oh. I thought he said, okay.
Okay.
okay, what I don't understand, to calculate 2% increase in the base rate, why would we not just take the 536,520, which is the budgeted water revenue, and take 2% of that number? which is $10,000. I don't understand why increasing the base rate by 2% doesn't just increase that number by 2%.
Is that revenue, through the chair, that revenue line is a combination of base rate and consumption.
Okay, it's a combination of base rate and consumption. So by increasing the base rate, we don't increase the consumption rate.
Correct.
I guess, okay. So be something less than $10,000, but I still, Mr. Chairman, I would like to. No, I'm just looking down the road and I can see that these systems, I mean, we've been told for many, many years that this system on County Road 2 needs attention. We've tried several different grant applications. Maybe this time we're going to get there. But this one is limited strictly to water, remember, and all of the sewer costs is going to have to come out of that sewer reserve. There's no grant against that sewer.
That's correct.
Project, which will have to be done at the same time. So I believe that we should be taking an increase in the levy and an increase in the base rate. Small increase in the base rate and a $1 increase in the levy.
Do you have the base rate you're thinking of percentage?
2%.
2% or 1%?
Or 1%.
All right, just keeping those two comments in mind, I'm just going to poll the committee, starting with Mr. Bush, as to whether you feel a 1% or 2% increase on the base and a $1 increase on the levy, or another figure. So I'll start with Mr. Bush. Or none.
I hate to push too hard, like 1 on the levy. It doesn't make a big difference, I guess. I say I don't like to push too hard, but 1% doesn't really give us a lot of extra money anyways.
Okay, on the levy, you were thinking $1, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and on the base rate, was there a percentage you had in mind?
No, not really, I hadn't, no.
Thank you. Mr. Packwood?
$1 on the levy, no change to base rate.
Councillor Hunter?
I think that a capital levy's got to go up. Whether it's $1 or $2, that's debatable. I still think that we're talking 2% on the base rate. Like if you talk per month thing, 25.44, that's basically 50 cents a month. Residential users are getting. Commercial ones are between, depending on the size of the thing, between $16.80 a month or $18.24 a month. If another $16 or $18 is going to break a commercial business per month, they're broke anyway. So.
Right. Anything else to add to that?
I just think we need to go 2% increase and $1 on the levy.
Deputy Mayor?
$1 on the levy.
Anything on the base rate?
No.
Mr. Mayor, what is your consensus here?
2% on the base rate and $1 on the levy.
And Councilor Littlebaugh?
$2 levy, no percentage.
And being the only user of the system. It's not funny, folks. It really isn't. But I would consider $1 on the levy and 2% on the base rate. So what I'm looking at is I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at $1, 1 at $2, And on the, that's on the levy. So it looks like $1 is adequate or a winner there. And on the base rate, I have 0, 0, 0, 2, and 2. So it looks like a 2% increase is the feeling around the table.
Can we pull that number again, please?
No.
Am I wrong?
I'm just wondering, Mr. Chair, that it might serve better to have a mover and a seconder on a motion and vote on it. And if it's,
Well, yes,
or it could be amended. Because I think there's some difference of opinions around the
Yes.
table. So.
Okay. Okay, so you want the recommendation to stand as it is recommended, is that correct?
There can be a mover and a seconder to bring forward a recommendation. If they want to bring forward a recommendation of a 2% base rate increase with a $1 levy on top of that, then if there's a mover and a seconder, it can be discussed and voted on.
All right, I will ask the question then. Would anyone like to put forth a motion regarding the rate structure change to the Cardinal water system?
I'll put forward a motion, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
and I'll make a change after the word estimate.
Are you talking about the estimate word in the recommendation?
Yes.
All right, would you carry on then, please?
Okay, so looking for a seconder. That committee recommends that council direct staff to draft the bylaw to adopt the 2022 budget estimates with a $1 increase in the levy, in the capital levy, and a 2% increase in the base rate for the Cardinal water system effective January 1, 2022. Looking for a seconder.
Councillor Hunter, seconds. Okay, you've heard the recommendation and the amendment to the recommendation. Any questions regarding the recommendation before I call the question? Hearing none. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Defeated. Okay, I'm now going to ask staff, I just need a little help here. Where do we go from here? The recommendation has been defeated, so
So you need a new recommendation from somebody else.
Counselor,
Thank you, through the chair. I make a recommendation that we put a $2 capital levy,
An increase.
an increase of $2 in the capital levy and no percentage increase.
okay, you're moving that.
Yes.
Does Counselor Dillabaugh have a seconder for that? Counselor Hunter? Okay, so it is no base with a 2% or a $2 levy
Increase in the
Increase.
capital levy.
Capital levy.
in capital levy. Okay. I have a mover, I have a seconder. I'll call the question on that. All in favor? 1, 2, sorry, I didn't see the hand. So that one is defeated. Now, do we do this all over again?
Well, did you call opposed?
I did not call opposed. Any opposed, which is myself, yourself, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So I'll move the next one. That committee recommends the council direct staff to draft bylaw to adopt budget estimates plus a $1 increase to the levy for the Cardinal water system effective January 1st, 2022.
No base rate.
No base rate.
Okay. And so you're the mover?
I am.
Do I have a seconder for that recommendation?
Yeah,
Good. Okay, Councilor Dillabaugh, and I'm going to call the question on the amended recommendation. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe that
Opposed, if
recommendation.
any?
Opposed? 1, 2. So we have a carried recommendation. Thank you. Okay, if you would just bear with me, folks, I have to find where I am here. Okay, so we are now at 7G, which is to approve the 2022 raw water supply system, LLPS, draft budget. And Madam Treasurer, would you highlight?
Certainly through the chair. We've actually added a 1% increase to this particular system.
Yes.
Mainly due to try to make sure we offset the costs, mainly due to the indexing for salaries. Wasn't a lot of change in some of the other areas. So we will be doing the same with this in this particular budget. It was drafted back in September, sent to Greenfield for their review. They're given 30 days to respond, and we had no response, and that was in favorable to the budget itself. We haven't seen an increase in this particular budget for a couple of years, so that's why we did a little bit of an increase as well, so that we could, because of the indexing in the union contract.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns? I'm hearing none. The recommendation is that committee recommends that council approve the 2022 raw water supply system LLPS budget as presented. Any concerns or questions with the recommendation? Hearing none, I'm going to ask the question. All in favor? I'm sorry, we don't have a mover and
We
second.
don't have a mover and seconder, Mr. Chair.
I do apologize. Councilor Hunter, you're moving. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Dillabaugh, thank you. Now I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to 7H, and that happens to be the last of the information items. And this is a review update on the River Route Transit Pilot Program. And I believe Mr. CAO, Mr. Grant, would you highlight being on the committee? Would you highlight your or this item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So wanted to highlight that we started August 30th this year, and there's 11 stops within the 4 municipalities. Basically, from the we'll call it September 1st to the end of October, there have been 457 riders that have taken advantage of the river route. To date, there are 17% of the riders that are picked up or dropped off in Augusta Township, 36% in Edwardsburg Cardinal, and 47% in Prescott. So after 9 weeks of operation, the expenses are approximately or just under 28,000. And the ridership revenue received to date is just about 2,800 by the end of October. So we have seen some increase in daily ridership. It was slow at the start, but we have seen some increase, and the marketing efforts will extend out beyond the businesses to sort of to the general population with respect to shopping and other errands that they may want to undertake. But right off the bat, the focus with respect to the grant was focused on getting people to and from their workplace. So we're planning to expand out now. So more information and for discussion with respect to any questions that committee may have with respect to the operation of the first couple of months.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Now, there is no recommendation, so we'll not be voting on this, but if you have any concerns or questions to the CAO, and I'll start with Councillor Dillabaugh.
I'd just like to, as you know, Councillor Shanker and I took it from Prescott, and myself took it a couple weeks ago, and we had a lot of positive input, and I can see by the stats here, I'm quite happy that we have 36% of the riders in every Cardinal using it. And I'm hoping it can pick up and continue the flow, and I'm sure it will. And I'm happy to see that staff is looking at other revenue in regarding of continuing this service to our 3 townships. So I'm quite pleased with it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No comment.
Thank you, and Deputy Mayor. No comment. And Councillor Hunter.
Just a question. What was the grant we received? 100,000, was it? They got,
Through the chair, it was a $25,000 grant.
125?
No, 25.
25, that's all they got from the province? So we've spent that in the first 2 months.
That would be correct.
And now it's being funded by the municipalities.
Yeah, there is each municipality has put forth 10,000, so there is 30,000 remaining.
Well, unless we have a drastic increase in funding within the next month, they're going to run out of money.
I would say if the expense and revenue continue to track as they are, it will be in January that we will have probably capped at 55,000, which is the 30,000 from the municipalities and the 25,000.
How long was it supposed to run for?
It was to be a 6-month trial.
I'd only be 4 months. So.
We would probably be in between 4 to 5 months.
Mr. Packwood.
I'm happy to see that things like this are being tried, and hopefully things do pick up.
Thank you. Mr. Bush.
No comment.
Okay, I just have
Late comment.
certainly.
These kinds of pilot projects don't ramp up. They start and ramp down. That's what happens, my experience. The difference between the ridership for the first month and the second month is something like 211 in the first month and 246, which is 36 people difference on 6 runs per day times 20 some days. So the difference between first and second month is relatively almost the same. So I didn't realize that our grant from the province was 25,000. I thought it was higher than that. And did all 3 townships, so through the chair, did all three townships or all 3 jurisdictions put in the 10,000 in cash? I know we did. But did the others put cash up? Because I was under the impression, I know for sure Rockville didn't put up cash. They put up the hard asset, the bus itself. But did the other 3 put up cash?
So
through
the chair, the other 2 municipalities did put up cash.
Okay, so that's for sure, then the cash available then is capped at 55. And, you know, if the briefing note shows that we've run through 27,000 in the first 60 days.
So through the chair, just, and I can't fully speak for the other municipalities, but our resolution capped our amount at 10,000. That's not to say that the other municipalities may not, that they may contribute more. I don't know.
And it's a possibility they could have contributed less,
No,
or was 10,000.
10,000 was the requirement.
I would just like to ask a question, and it's on page 149. It's the last paragraph, starting with staff have already. And what I'm concerned about, some of the things that are coming up that are going to include, this includes the provincial gas tax funding. Now, this is looking for new ways to get money into the project. Do you have it at this point in time? Do you have any idea what the impact on the provincial gas tax, which comes to us, possibly may be?
So through the chair, though, we're just, the committee's just exploring that right now in advance, because there will be a report early on in the in the new year with respect to this pilot project, and I'm sure that that each council is going to want to know where everything stands, and whether they each individual council wants to continue to we'll say participate in the program.
Thank you. I would just like to also add too that since Councillor Dilma did ride the system, I have had reports back from other people that are using the system, and they do think it a viable process to continue. But however, the numbers of riders and usership does not really see any huge increase, but perhaps when the committee targets more of the residential units, or people, riders, I should say, instead of the business riders, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it will certainly add up a little bit better. So anyway, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on. Thank you. That concludes the information items. We will now go to the councillor inquiries and / notices of motion. Do I hear any? I'm hearing none. Thank you. I just have one that I would like to mention, and it on November 9th and 10th, I was on the AMO virtual Zoom meeting, speaking about conflict with ratepayers. I was quite skeptical about it before it started. However, I must say that I think it is a very good program for any councillor or elected official to be aware of and take. I came away learning a considerable amount. I was quite happy about that. There is another course coming up on December the 10th, and I would just bring that up if any other elected official would like to join that or whatever. I think it would be well worth your time, and I believe that Rebecca can still get us in. It is limited, I believe, to 20 spaces, and I do believe there are still some spaces left, but entirely up to you, but I would recommend it. Okay, moving on now, and the next item on the list, which is number 9, and the mayor's report. Mr. Mayor, do you have a report tonight?
Just a short one. So the first is the reminder, well, again, I guess this will be the last one. The United Council Leads in Grenville Economic Development Summit taking place this Friday at 9 o'clock. It's a Zoom type thing, virtual economic development summit, great speakers. And in case council wonders where I am, because I tend to be there for as much of it as I can be, and I think I'm going to come here when I can. However, have another trip to Ottawa on Friday. Time is still to be determined. And now the second thing I wanted to report on was the meeting of the St. Lawrence Corridor Economic Development Committee meeting, which was held on November the 10th, Wednesday. It was actually the first time that we've met in person for many, many months, over a year now. But pretty well all of the committee members were there. There's some good news and some bad news. Now, unfortunately, I can give you the bad news, but I can't give you the good news. But the bad news is that the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands, which had relayed their decision to us 6 months ago that they would be opting out effective November the 17th, they did send an email to the commissioner reaffirming that decision. Now, other than that single email, we really don't have at this point any of the council resolutions that would back up that email. So the staff is in the business of assembling the documentation to verify the information that we received by the email. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that there is a major announcement that will be coming out. We're hoping it'll come before December the 17th. And believe me, when you hear the announcement, you will know and you will be proud of the fact that we were part of this commission. I've had my misgivings. I don't mind saying that. I've had my misgivings about the commission. However, during the month of November, well, actually, I got to go back. Starting way back in March, the commissioner got a lead. And it was a rather nebulous kind of thing, which he has dogged and worked on since March. And since March, he has built a relationship with a major Canadian company. And it's taken a long, long time for that relationship to grow fruit, to the point that about 2 months ago, we were made aware of the fact that that major Canadian company was about to make a definite expression of interest in our area. We couldn't say anything more about it, and we can't say anything more about it other than when you hear the announcement, you'll be proud to be part of the commission. And that announcement, we hope, will be before December the 15th. That's all I can say at this point.
Do you have anything else to report, Mr.
No,
Mayor?
that's it.
That is the end of your report. Thank you. That leads us now to question period, and there is no one in the gallery and no one in the remote, so there is no questions. So that leads us now to our closed sessions, or our closed session. And I believe Councillor Hunter has going into closed session.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Dish, on the committee proceed in closed session at 8:18 in order to address the matter pertaining to 1, Section 239 2CA, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposal of land by the municipality or local boards, Secretary for Land Bank. 2, Section 239 2B, personal matters about an identified individual, including municipal or local board employees, to Secretary of Public Works, and minutes of closed session date July 19, 2021.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. That's carried.
5-minute break, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Closed session. I believe that's
Moved by
Councilor
Shaw,
Hunter.
second by Deputy Mayor Disha, that the closed meeting of the committee does now adjourn and the open meeting does now resume at 9:45 PM.
We have a mover, we have a seconder, and call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
So we are now back in open session. That was carried. Okay, we're back in open session, and in closed session, we discussed a matter regarding section 239-2-C of the Municipal Act, pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, specifically Edwardsburg Land Bank. And we also discussed section 239-2-B regarding a personal matter about an individual, specifically Public Works. So, and I've lost my agenda.
I think Councilor Dillabaugh has a motion to bring forward.
The closed session minutes.
Go ahead.
Moved by myself and seconded by Mayor Sayah that the committee receives and approves closed session minutes dated July 19th, 2021.
We have a mover and a seconder. And I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Once again, I have to apologize here. Okay, now I need the adjournment, which I believe is Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor John Hunter. The committee does now adjourn at 9:48 PM.
Thank you. We have a mover and a seconder, calling the question. All in favor for adjournment?
Aye.
Aye, carried. We are now adjourned. Thank you.